the LA probate expert. This is our Tuesday live stream on real estate investing. Now, for 2 years, we called it the Real Estate Investing Zoom, and that's our website, realestateinvestingzoom.com. But today we launched a new branding and a new relationship. We're renaming this the LA Real Estate Investors Podcast. LArealestateinvestors.com is a website with Lloyd Siegel's group in Los Angeles, the largest, I think, live real estate event in Southern California. We get about 250 people every month, about 50 vendors. And we got together and said, hey, we're talking to some of the same people and some of the same topics. And while we work together on that, so we become the official live stream for his event. And I'll be going to his event, which is the second Thursday of the month in Los Angeles. And we'll do some live streaming there from guests as well. So thank you for being on today. And we do this every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Tuesday on Pacific time and 6 p.m. Eastern time. And I guess 5 p.m., Central time, where our guest today is. Really lucky to have, I had met him and been on their podcast, I think about a year ago, and we stayed in contact. Dan Kwak of the Kwak brothers, which obviously asks and brings up two questions. Number one, if it's the Kwak brothers, why is only one of you? And two, they get the right Kwak or the wrong Kwak. So can you help us understand those?
Nice. Yeah. So I have an older brother. His name's Sam. And considering today's topic is real estate, I could probably offer a little bit more intellectual property, I guess, on that topic. So, my brother and I, we're blessed, right, to receive different gifts, and we're both good at different things. So there's me on the left, there's my brother to the right, and of course, as you can tell, this is very important if you have siblings now, that I am approximately half a centimeter taller than my brother. Which, if for those of you guys that have siblings, that it's like the world of difference. So I love my brother. I'm a brother.
I get that, and you're a little taller.
That's exactly right.
But he's a little better looking, so he makes up for it with that.
Oh man, you went there, huh? Nice. Yeah, no, he's a good looking guy, So I'm very blessed. It's what they say, it's blood is thicker than water, and it's something that I've been very, very blessed to have, a partner who not only trusts me but gets me, and we have complementary skills.
Nice, very nice. I have a brother too, and first part of my career was spent with him as well, and I appreciate it. And I really always envious when I see brothers still working together, because I really enjoyed that time of our life. My brother moved out of the country, and he's actually visiting next month, so excited to see him again. So give us a little background about where you grew up, and then how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up very poor. Poor is actually quite an understatement. And I tell people all the time is when you grow up poor, you learn poor. And that is a very interesting concept. So we immigrated to the country in 1999. I was 5 years old. And, we're talking, we had an apartment where if you turn on the lights, the cockroaches go from the middle of the room, they scatter to the outwards, the outlines of the room. There was one time where my mother and I, along with my brother and my dad, we were in the park, and I saw my mom picking up weeds, right, from just the grass. And, 2 hours later, I saw that at our dinner table. So there was one story, however, that just kind of changed my perspective on the world, changed my perspective on money and what it means. And so I remember I was 6 years old, and this was around 1:30 in the morning. So it was late at night. And, ever since I was a kid, I always had trouble sleeping. So I'm looking out, and as poor as we are, we lived next to, let's call it there's no kids here. It was a strip club. We lived next to a strip club. I was going to say gentlemen's entertainment center, right? But, right. It's the adult Chuck E. Cheese for men, right? So we lived, and then I remember 1:30, I see this guy, he's wearing a custom made suit, really expensive stuff. I don't remember his car, but I remember it had a nice little L on the back, right? That was the brand. And the guy was, he's stumbling, and I look over 90 degrees to my left, and I see my parents, who the most God-fearing, most giving, most humble people on the earth, and they're sharing a twin bed in a room that doubled as our dining room, their bedroom, our kitchen, and the living room. So the question that I began to ask myself was, what would it look like if my parents had, with as great of a heart that they had the ability to make money like the guy who stumbled out of the gentleman's entertainment center? And I started asking that question ever since I was 6 years old. All the way up until I was about 18, 19 years old. And that's when I got into real estate. And the way I got into real estate is I read an article in Forbes magazine that says that out of the top 1% of people in the world, something like 76% of those people made their money by investing in real estate. And so I started learning about it. I mean, just became obsessed, submerged myself into the world of finance and investing in real estate. And then, by the time I was 23, I had about 87 doors. So, I guess you could say the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. So inspiring. I think we all have our lessons and how we got there. So how did you start in real estate? What was your first investment? Make money on it, lose money on it, learn from it? What was your first experience?
So I was one of those people that for years just learned and never did anything. I'm sure there's some people here could raise their hand like, yeah, that's me right now. Or that used to be me. So I read every book. I went to every seminar, bought a lot of courses, paid for a couple coaches, and like nothing happened. And then there was one moment. And by the way, are you guys okay if I speak about like faith? Because that is an authentic part of the story. Okay. So yes. Whenever I get frustrated,
let me make you a quick poll. Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. All right, here we go. So whenever I get frustrated, I have conversations with the big guy upstairs, right? And I go to him, very similar to how a kid who's very frustrated that he can't do his homework will go to his dad for help. So I go like, God, what's going on? Like I've been studying my butt off now for 3-4 years. I'm not making any money. I'm meeting people every single week that are just, no offense, not as smart as I am, who don't know as much as I know, who are making 6-7 figures. Like, why is that? So he takes me to this story in John, right? So there's a story in John, I think it's chapter 17. And in this story, like the main character, Jesus, is walking into the room with his disciples. And it's like the Bible describes this moment when Jesus is walking in the room, and scripture says that he had the realization that he was the most powerful being in the universe. And it actually says word for word, Jesus realized that the Father had put everything under his authority, and that he was from the Father and then was returning to the Father. And what's interesting is the verse right after that, it starts off with so, right? If you're reading the NIV version, not the King James, it probably would have said like thine or thy or, or they, whatever pronoun people use nowadays. But so it says, so like cause and effect, he began to remove his outer clothing and garments and began to wash the feet of his disciples. And I always find it so interesting that you meet and you understand, you comprehend a man or a woman's true character when they're either at their highest point in life or when they're at their lowest point in life. And in that moment, as I was reading, God directly spoke to me with a voice so clear, said, Daniel, your problem is that you're probably the smartest guy in every single room you walk into, but as you walk out, the people's feet are still dirty. And Ouch. That for me was like the lightning bolt that hit, my head right on the dome. And so I was like, well, what does that mean? What do I do? How do I change? And how do I adapt? And so what I did is I grabbed a notepad, at this point, I'm just listening to God. I'm just being obedient to what his spirit is telling me to do. And, he didn't tell me to start a new religion, right? He didn't tell me like, hey, like you're going to start this new faith where you get to have multiple wives, right? But he asked me to grab a notepad, and he's just said very simply, said, walk up to every single people or every single person you meet on a weekly basis in your real estate networking world and ask them, what is your number one problem you currently have in your business? And I started doing that. And I still have the notepad to this day. I've got about probably 300-400, maybe even upwards 500 people. And I got their email address and everything. And I noticed a pattern. And I'll tell people right now, like, if you want to be a millionaire, like know how, like you'll be really good at making money, right? But I remember I asked a billionaire one time, I was like, what separates you from a millionaire? And the billionaire that I met says, millionaires care about ideas, execution, and strategy. Billionaires care about people. And they care about networking. They care about solving problems for those people. And he says, like, billionaires are billionaires because they produce other millionaires. And I'm like, wow, that's so interesting to me, because it's literally the same thing that God told me, and it's just in a different way. So I started recognizing patterns, and I started finding ways where I can authentically serve people without expecting anything in return. So here's what I found. I found that about 60 to 65, 70% of people, a vast majority of people, had deals, but they were very short on capital. And I'm sure a lot of people could type in the chat box right now, like, yep, that's me. Like, I have deals, but I have a tough time raising capital. And then eventually I got to like 5-10% of people who says, well, Daniel, like, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I make $650,000 a year, and my CPA is telling me I need to get involved with some real estate, and I need to put it into some deals. So what service I offered, and again, I'm doing all this for free, right? Like the service I offered was, hey, how about I start vetting these deals? So I know a lot of people, like these hundreds of people have raised their hand and told me that I have deals, I just don't have money. So since I'm pretty knowledgeable in underwriting deals and understanding the concepts, why don't I vet these deals for you, and then I'll bring them to you. And that's what I started doing. I started working with this one guy, who was in property management for 40 years. I vetted him. He was very good at what he did. And I started introducing investors to him. And then one day he called me and he goes, hey, like, what if I gave you 25% of this apartment complex that I'm doing, since you helped raise the equity for it? And so that's how I started learning as an actual partner, not just from courses, not just from, classes, and that's kind of where and that's actually what inspired me to start a coaching business like a year ago. It's very tough to learn real estate from books or podcasts. Like you get to a certain point, but eventually you're going to have to learn from someone directly that's actually in the field.
I think it's everything, right? I mean, I'm a real estate broker, and if people ask me how to start their business and they want to learn the proper script and what do I say and how to say it, and they ask me a million questions, and I say, well, if you just call for an hour, you'll answer all those questions yourself. You'll figure out the right answer for you. But you got to get started at some point. So, okay. So now you've explained how you learned boots on the ground, and you've now learned how to find good deals. You found people who have a challenge. You found other people who have cash you've been able to put together. Along the way, though, I know you also reach out to a lot of people who are starting their path like you did at the very beginning. So walk me through, how do you help somebody who says to you, Daniel, I'm that guy who my parents live next door to the strip club, and we're that poor, and I have the same dream, and I'll work and do whatever I have to do. What do I do? Where do you point that person to get in action?
Yeah. So I always tell them, let's break it down. Right. I like simple, right? I think Jesus was simple. Jesus, right? Like by the time Jesus came, there was like 613 laws that the Jews were actually following. And Jesus came and says like, hey, let's make it simple and just turn that into two things. So I like simple. So I say, hey, let's pay attention to the bare bones. Like what are we here on this earth? So I believe there's four currencies in life, right? So there's money, there's time, there's knowledge, and there's network, right? So relationships, knowledge, time, and money. It just so happens that you don't happen to have the money part, but we do have time. We have the capabilities to get knowledge, and we also have the capabilities to build a network. And I think that's what a lot of people mistake. So for a lot of people who are just starting out, you have no money, you have no ways of even buying an apartment building. I say always start with the first two, which is knowledge and network. Like I tell people, like, go to as many conferences as you can, go to as many networking events, as many meetups as you possibly can, get as many books, like as courses, you name it, like learn as much as you possibly can and build your network to as big as you can make it. And you'd be surprised how many opportunities start presenting themselves to you. And if you focus on networking, you not only get sellers, but you also get investors, you get people you can use on your operations team, and you get opportunities too. Like one of the things I teach a lot of my one-on-one clients is the difference between a good investor and a great investor is that good real estate investors look for properties. Great real estate investors look for people. Some of the best deals I've done, like, and I know guys in my corner, in my network that I'm good buddies with, guys like Grant Cardone, Ken McElroy, Brandon Turner. Like every single time we mastermind, we have conversations about our greatest deals. It's always been, we had the mentality of let's look for people and not properties. If you look for properties, you're going to get that. But if you look for people, you'll find sellers that actually want to work with you. And at the end of the day, like any business, I don't care if you're in real estate, I don't care if you sell energy drinks, I don't care if you whatever, right? Like we're in a people business, like the definition that I believe of an entrepreneur is somebody who can change the world based on what their perspective and their vision is and anticipate the needs of the people around them in the market that they're serving. So it's the same thing with real estate. When you're raising capital, you're not asking anything. That's like one thing that drives me crazy. People are like, well, I'm like afraid to ask for money. I'm so hesitant to ask for money. And you're not asking for money. I guarantee you there's more people out there that are looking for opportunities that have at least $100,000 in their account, compared to people that actually know what they're doing and have a great opportunity in their hand. And same thing with sellers, like sellers want to work with legitimate buyers. Like they want to work with buyers that care, that actually see them as human beings and are able to meet their needs. So if you change and adopt your mentality, and if you focus step number one on building that network and building your knowledge base as much as you can, like you'll be unstoppable. Like those three things alone, like you'd be surprised how far those things can take you.
So it's interesting when you talk about networking. The reason I created this call 2 years ago when COVID shut us down was I was going weekly to a call in Van Nuys, which is about an hour from here. And about 40, 50 people got together at lunchtime. And I made good money just from the people I met there. I was there every week. People knew me. They saw me as reliable. I had a track record. It stopped. So I said, well, let's start something online. So those of you who are on this call, look, if you're able to do online networking, great. You're here now. If you're going to spend the time, make it valuable. How do you make it valuable? Network with the people on this call. Put out what you have to offer for other people. I see on here now, I don't have to tell, but I know Sean and Kevin are going to share with you what they do and how to reach them, because they're people who need what they do and want to reach them. So feel free to do that. I also feel like in networking, you want to provide some value as well. Sometimes it's just keep turning your camera on, paying attention. Sometimes it's asking an insightful question to help lead the discussion area that's productive for everybody. So this is my challenge to all of you on the call today. You have a master networker and successful entrepreneur and coach telling you one of the 4 steps that's free, by the way. I don't charge you for this. I'm not charging for any advertising, is the network. So feel free to jump in and offer a value to the people in a way that those people who want that value can contact you, and hopefully you can make some money as well. So Daniel, we talked about what people need to get started. You mentioned those 4 things. Again, it was capital. Some people have it, some don't. Networking, knowledge or education, and relationships. Those were the 4, right? So today we can work a little bit on networking. What do you see that holds people back? I'm sure, like me, you get people come to you and say, Daniel, I want to be just like you. I want to make a lot of money. I want to have a lot of wealth. I want to provide for the family. They're genuine. They really mean it, but they just struggle with that first step. What do you see as that barrier? And then what are you able to do, or have you found any success in getting them started in that first step?
Yeah, so I resonate a lot with what you're saying. So I remember, I'll tell you a story. So I remember
I'm asking you because I don't know the answer. So
no, for sure. So I'll do my best, right? I definitely don't have all the answers, but I'll try my best to answer them. So I remember when I was 22 to 24, right? So it was around that age range. I was doing a lot of traveling because a lot of people wanted to know, like, hey, how did you do so many things in such a short amount of time, right? So I remember I would be gone like 3-4 times a week. So I'd be in 3 cities a week. So I remember, like, this was my schedule at one point. So I would do a training Monday night in Downers Grove, Illinois, or downtown Chicago, depending on what, like who needed me. And then Tuesday I'd fly to LA. Wednesday I'd go to Seattle. And then Thursday I'd fly to Philadelphia. And then Friday I would come back and do another training in the morning, right? So I remember that was my schedule. And I met hundreds and thousands of different people that wanted to and were aspiring to be real estate investors. And, I taught for a couple of different companies. There's one company that I mainly was an instructor for. And it hit me that, like, the success rate of a lot of these individuals and a lot of these different companies and a lot of these organizations were like below 1%. Like, it was bad, right? Like, I mean, you're nodding your head, like you get it, right? Like a lot of these gurus and coaching programs and real estate courses that people are selling, like the success rate is less than 1%. And I asked myself, why? Like, why is that? Why is it that people struggle so much? Like, despite, and these people, they're not lazy. Like, these people work hard, right? Like, some of them, they're like working 10 hours a day and still go home and still work on their business for 2 hours, crying out loud. And it's not that they're not committed. Like, these people are spending tens of thousands of dollars just to be involved. Like, I mean, I don't know how much of these courses cost nowadays. Like, I think like Fortune Builders charges like 60 grand, like Rich Dad, they charge 40. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't charge that much, right? Like, but it's amazing, so it's like, I knew it wasn't a matter of commitment, right? So I knew people were committed, people work hard. And I was like, there's gotta be another thing. So I started asking people like, hey, what's your biggest barrier to entry in real estate? Like, what's stopping you from doing that first deal? What's stopping you from making those calls? What's stopping you from doing all these things? And it hit me. I realized that like after traveling, like having an insane schedule, getting in front of tens of thousands of people, I realized the answer was it's not that most people don't know how to invest in real estate. Most people don't know how to start a business. And most people don't know how to transfer the knowledge that they have and turn it into a blueprint. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there it is. Cause I was like, I remember thinking like, why are so many people asking for scripts? Like I'm not a big believer in scripts, by the way, because because a script implies you have a cookie cutter method to every single relationship, every single transaction, every single, engagement and interaction you have. I don't believe in that, because last time I checked, every deal has a different seller, every deal has a different property, different market, different intricacies, you name it, different investors, different ways you structure capital, different tax. Like, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So, and I just realized like people crave, like they get on these podcasts, they listen to these interviews because they just want to hear the magic words. Like, what do I have to say word for word, letter for letter to get sellers to want me to sell their property to me? What exactly do I have to say so that I can get investors to invest in me, right? And that clicked with me. It's like, wow, like most people just struggle at knowing how to create a strategy and knowing how to create a blueprint.
It's interesting because I put a little differently myself when I answer the question, which is you have to have, I've always found people successful have three things. They have a leader or a teacher or a pastor or a rabbi or a coach. Number two, they have a system, process, a book in religion typically, process, methodology. And three, they have to have colleagues, they have to have team members, they have to have a congregation, they have to have other people doing the same thing they are. You have to have a process of some sort, but the process is what the coach is telling you. And so often people will come into a system and the coach will say, well, here's what you do. Like you're saying, don't worry about a script. And I know you have this experience too. They'll argue with you, but I need a script. And you'll say, just make the calls. No, I need a script. Just make the calls. I need a script. And it's like, who's coaching who here? I think we have this backwards. I find that process difficult. You think a part of it is a functionality of people's coachability? Do you see it as part of the issue?
Yes and no. Like, as I've come to learn, like I've been teaching and coaching for a good amount of time now. And, I think one of the reasons why people want a script so bad is, let's just call it what it is they're afraid, right? Like they're afraid of failing, right? Because if they fail using the script, at least it's not their fault.
Ah, interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Like, oh no, like it's not that I was bad, it's that your script sucks. It's just like amazing.
So interesting. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
It's not me, it's the script, because they can't take the rejection.
Correct.
That's so, because I came from, I was a kid in Little League who had to go sell candy door to door. Other people's families bottle the candy or bought the magazines. My parents made me go out and sell all that stuff. Then I did telemarketing in high school, and I've always been selling something, and people hang up on me every day. I really could care less. That's just part of being a real estate. And you're right, though. They're so, oh my gosh. Okay. So what do you do to help them get over that? I guess it's just really that to have faith in you or faith in the system at some point to march through that fear.
Yeah. And I think to your point, like, I think that's why a lot of successful individuals, business owners, real estate investors, like if you think about it, like their background is in sales. They got started in sales.
Yeah.
So that's true for me too. Like I remember still being in a multi-level marketing company at 17 years old, like selling orange energy drinks. Some of you guys know which company I'm talking about. They eventually got indicted. And that's why, like, I swear, like every Mormon person I meet, like they're wildly successful. Yes. They know, like going door to door and like people just shutting the door, like, I don't want to hear about your Jesus, like they get that, like they understand rejection. And I just got to a point where it's just like, and I realized that the same fear of a lot of people getting on the phone, a lot of times is like, it's the same fear with sales, the same fear with anything, people at the end of the day, and I've learned this even through my marriage, my relationships, like a lot of things, like people at the end of the day, they're afraid that they're not good enough. Like that's just the truth, right? Like we're afraid that we're not good enough as husbands. We're afraid we're not good enough as friends. We're not good enough as entrepreneurs. We're not good enough as people. And that's tough. Like now we're getting into some really deep waters into why people don't succeed. And they want almost like, it's weird, but like people want step-by-step processes because that's a way that they don't blame themselves if it fails. They can blame the system, they can blame the script, they can blame so many other things but themselves. And it's a shame because like blaming yourself a lot of times is the greatest thing you can do. But do it in a healthy way, right? Like doing it in a way that's very, very, very healthy. So I say one of the greatest business decisions I've ever made in my life was getting a therapist. Like that is by far one of the best things I did for my career professionally, like as a leader who leads, this entire organization, as an investor, as a coach. Like the best thing I ever did was get a therapist.
Wow. So, it's so interesting that you say that because some of these pieces now fit into place. Last week on Thursday on my other live cast, I did a piece on phone skills. How I used to coach cold calling. I would get 50 people in a room. I did this 4 or 5 days a week for about 4 years. I think I coached more people live phone calling than anybody in Southern California. And so I've developed kind of a lecture on, well, these are the skills and the techniques when you make phone calls. If you're going to call for 3 or 4 hours, stand up, wear a headset, let the phone ring 3 times, hang up before the 4th, little, mechanical stuff.
Yes.
And I had more negative feedback on that call than any I've ever done. And yet none of them for people who I recognized, or, I was wondering who, and I had other people who know me who are very successful call me and say, that was the best call you ever done. And it's because people who aren't successful don't understand it's the work. You got to put the work in. There's no shortcut short of doing the work. And if you're fearful, I guess you're right. You can bail out and say, I was scared. I didn't make it. I didn't do it. It's your fault, whatever the story is. But I'm committed. I have no choice. I got to pay the bills. I have a family to provide for. I have grandkids. I want to live a big life. I don't have a choice. I got to figure it out somehow. And I'm always learning, and I take responsibility for the results. And then, well, what do I have to do to make it better? What do I have to do to get more leads or convert more leads or whatever I have to do? So it's fascinating. Okay. Hey, everybody on here, this is meant to be interactive. So you are welcome. I'm having a fun time talking to Dan, and I could talk all day long. So you can let me if you want to, or you have a chance to talk to somebody who's very successful in real estate, in coaching people. And so feel free to, in the Zoom application on the reactions, raise your hand, put a question in the chat box, start with the letter Q, and I'll catch it that way. If you're watching on the live stream as well, I'm watching the YouTube and Facebook, feel free to jump in if you have questions and we'll ask him. So Daniel, describe a little bit, what do you offer? I know you have real estate, you have meetups. If I was looking to get started in real estate, or I was an investor looking to up my game, what are the services, or what are how would I participate with you to improve my income and improve my wealth?
Yeah. So somebody made a comment in the chat. I'll address that afterwards. But yeah, I do offer a coaching service, but I actually do also offer a free meetup. So we're doing a meetup today at 7 p.m. Central Time. So literally an hour and a half from now. And this is actually a really cool meetup because I'm actually bringing on a buddy of mine who's currently one of my committed investors. And and I want to interview him actually. I'm going to interview him like, hey, like, from the perspective of a passive investor, like walk us through what you see when you talk to a GP, when you vet somebody to like whether or not you decide you're going to invest in their deal, like walk us through that thought process. And the reason why I'm bringing him on is because he's actually he's like your quintessential sophisticated investor. Like this is the guy that you want, right? Because he's paying attention to what's happening in the market. He's very liquid. So I'd say he's about 13 mil liquid. Nice. And he's smart, right? Like he knows whether or not you're bringing a good deal. But Kevin Russell actually made a comment. He says a practice script will help you handle objections. If you call unprepared, you're dead. By having few selected inquiries and responses to objections, keeps up. I absolutely agree. I think I'll add on to that. One of the things I teach my coaching clients is don't be so quick to unleash your objections when people are asking, right? So for example, I'll give you a good one, right? So like one of the most common objections that investors will give to an investor will be like, hey, are you putting any of your own money into this deal? That's like one of the most common, most hardest objections, right? Like that's one of those where people are like, damn it, he asked that, he brought up that. Oh man, that's the hard one, right? Like that is the one. And then one of the things I teach my clients is don't address the issue head on. And I'll share what I mean by that. Think about why that person asked that question. Like there's a difference between, so this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. So it's by a guy named Henry David Thoreau. He says, for every 1,000 people who hack away at the leaves of evil, there's only one person that hack away at the root. And it's true of sales, right? So for every 1,000 salespeople that hack away at the question or the objection, there's only one true entrepreneur that hack away at the root. So for me, when somebody asks me like, Daniel, are you putting any of your own money into this deal? Which nowadays I do, right? Like nowadays I do put my own money into my own deals. But I remember back then, like when I wasn't in the position to put $25,000, $50,000 into my own syndication deals, people used to ask me that. And I kind of came up with my response. And my response was, John, is it possible that you're asking me whether or not I'm putting my own money into the deals because you're concerned and it's because you may not trust me, right? Like I try to get to the heart of why are they even asking that objection? Instead of disarming that objection, which a lot of expert salespeople will tell you to do, for me, I want to know why. Like, what is the heart of that individual? What is the true concern of that individual? Because a lot of times, if you have a well-planned objection and you fire it off, people are like, oh, okay. But if you actually address the heart, if you address why they even asked that question, you have the opportunity to turn it around and connect and sell even more and create even more conviction from that individual as to why they want to work with you. So, like a great disarmer is when people say like, oh, like, John will ask like, Daniel, are you putting any of your own money into this deal? Or another one that a lot of my students are afraid of is like, hey, like walk me through your track record. Is this your first deal? Have you done a deal yet? Right. Like it's another big one. And I teach my coaching clients to ask like, hey, John, is it possible that you're asking me that question because you're concerned about whether or not you can trust me? Right. Like go there, right? Be real, be vulnerable, be authentic. And 9 times out of 10, like John, the investor will say yes. Like, cause I want to know that the person I'm working with has a track record. I want to know that the person I'm working with is putting their own money in the deal for the real reason that I don't want this guy to ditch me. Like, I don't want this guy, if things hit the fan, like I want to know that this guy's got skin in the game. Like that is the real reason why they're asking that question. So then you have an opportunity to sell them even more, right? To address the real problem, not just the objection, right? Because the objection is the branch. The real thing is the root. The concern, the heart, the emotion is the root. So I want to identify the root. Okay, so we identified the root. Now let's turn it around, right? So was John like, so and so John the investor goes, yes, that is my real concern, right? And then you have an opportunity to go, John, like that's a valid question, like that's a valid concern, and that's a concern that a lot of investors have. And I'm glad you asked that question. So here's what we're doing to counteract that. Right. One of the things I'm doing is I'm signing my name on the loan. The financing that we're securing is actually, it's a recourse loan and they're asking for a personal guarantee. I'm not asking you to sign that letter of personal guarantee. I'm the one signing that letter of personal guarantee, meaning that if things go south, it's on me. Another thing is that, if you read our PPM, you'll know that the distribution waterfall stands that if things hit if things hit the fan, you're actually the one that gets paid first before I do. Right. So now, and by the way, notice the entire time, I haven't even addressed the fact that I'm not even putting my own money in my deals. I'm addressing the real thing. Right. So there is no, oh, John, I'm actually not putting any of my own money in my own deals. Or John, this is actually my first deal. Right. Where it's like you get embarrassed. Right. Like you kind of get embarrassed to tell them the truth. Right. So for me, like one of the things I teach my clients, one of the things I do today is, hey, like, and I always tell people have what's known as an irresistible offer at the end. Right. So I teach this concept where every business, you can make it into $1 million, $10 million business by asking these 3 questions. One is, who is your ideal client? Who are you mainly targeting? And that goes for sellers, that goes for investors. What is your irresistible offer? So based on who your ideal client is, what is the thing that they're going to love the most? So for example, when I was raising a lot of money 4, 5, 6 years ago, one of the main demographics I targeted were doctors. And what do doctors love about real estate? Tax benefits. So my irresistible offer is, hey, I'll give you 100% of the depreciation in the deal. That was my irresistible offer. So when they had an objection that was nasty, like a nasty objection, I do that. And then at the end, I throw in my irresistible offer. So I'd say those 2 things I just said. And I say, and oh, John, by the way, to increase the reward for you, we're actually giving away 100% of the depreciation to our limited partners, right? And like that, is that effect of you receive the objection, you address the real root, the real concern, you address those concerns with 2 or 3 or 4 other things in the deal that does. And then the last thing is you turn it around and then you attack, right? You increase the level of conviction for the individual by literally firing off your irresistible offer. And then to complete the last question, right, is what is the market doing? So who's your ideal client? What is your irresistible offer? The thing that's going to get you to stand head and shoulders above the rest. And then last but not least, what is the market doing? Because it doesn't matter how good of a strategy that you have if the market can't comply, right? That's like being a general. That's like going to war, having the best swords, the best spears, and then finding out the night before, oh, hey, the enemy is invading us by sea.
Right. You're so right. It's never the objection. It's your ability to answer the objection that they're really questioning. They just don't know how to ask that, right? When people say, I'm a salesperson, what's your commission? They're not really asking the commission. They're really saying, are you worth the commission you're charging? And the way you answer that either proves it or disproves it. And that's the challenge. And you're so right on creating value for people and listening to them. To those who are on the call also, if you think the problem is you don't have any money, when they ask you that question, if you literally said, hey, I have Jeff Bezos right here, he's in the deal and he's personally guaranteeing it, would that make a difference to you? The answer is no. They still have 15 other questions or challenges. And so Dan's right. You got to get to the root of the real problem. And the only way to get there is, I think, by digging deeper and figuring out what it is and then answering that. That's gold. That is real gold right there. And I think Kevin's also right, asking more questions. One of my original sales coaches was Mike Ferry, and he would say all the time, selling isn't telling, selling is asking questions. And if you can control the conversation, ask questions, dig deeper, you can find where the end of the branch becomes the root and cut the root off. That's fantastic. Gold.
Oh,
Thank
by the way,
you.
I got a couple of questions in the chat. I think they're direct messages on where they can find my meetup. So I just put the link. I just put the link in.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're gonna have that at 7 p.m. Central Time tonight, which is an hour 23 minutes from now. So you'll see me twice in one night. Congratulations.
Fox
I don't know
Valley,
if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
Fox Valley, is that you?
That's me. Yeah.
Where's Fox Valley? In Illinois, right?
So Fox Valley it's in Illinois.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, good. And but is that a virtual meetup or is that a live?
It is. Yeah. So it's all virtual. So that way everybody in the whole country can participate. So
everybody should click on that and join in there and get involved with your program. Great. Okay. Who else has a question here? You have a master here. You have a guy who's been doing it for a long time at a real high
I wouldn't
level.
say I'm a master, but I do my best. I definitely try to learn something new every day for sure. But thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your brother's the master. I forgot.
There you go. Perfect.
Coach, successful coach. A lot of you want to get started. Here's a guy who's been doing it and teaching people. So is the entryway then the real estate meetup? Is that the best place to start off if somebody's interested in learning more? Is there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have products. I have a free book. If you want to go to 0to75units.com, I outline my whole journey on how I went from. It's really actually 0 to 87. But my brother, who's one of his primary gifts is marketing, he was like, "Hey, we should do 75. Like it's more catchy." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Yeah. So we did. The book is called 0 to 75 units in 1 year. So I outlined how I raised the money, how I bought all the properties, how I found the deals, like everything I did to get to where I'm at today. It outlines it in there, and it's free. All you have to do is pay for shipping. So I try to give as many things for free as much as I can. Like the meetup tonight is free, like yours. Yeah, thank you, Bill. You just put the link there. That's free. But yeah, I mean, we do offer products and coaching programs, but I mean, there's a ton of value in what we give away.
Fantastic. And you were interviewed on Bigger Pockets there on your 075, weren't you, with Brandon? Is that?
Oh, yeah. So Brandon's a friend of mine. So he's actually speaking at one of the retreats I'm doing. So I'm actually doing a retreat in Utah this November. So it's a very intimate retreat. So I've been to a lot of conferences and I've been to a lot of different things. And I found that the most productive ones are the intimate retreats, right? Like they're way better than the conferences. They're way better, because it's an opportunity not for you to network more intimately, but these are people that are serious. These are people that are like willing to actually mastermind and strategize with you. And it's there's way more belly to belly with the speakers. And Brandon's actually speaking at my retreat this November. So really, really excited about that. And that's happening November 3rd through the 6th. And it's going to be in this nice mansion in Utah that I rented out. It's going to be awesome.
Wow.
But we're going to dive really deep into strategizing the next 12 months on how to crush it in the world of real estate investing. And I actually picked November for a reason, because if you look at historically when recessions typically tend to spark off, they're usually in the third quarter of a lot of fiscal years. So I chose November because I knew that in the year of 2023, there's going to be a lot of great opportunities in the world of real estate investing. So if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a strategy to capitalize on that, it's not good. It sounds bad, but never waste a recession, like especially in the world of real estate.
Or transition, recession really, on one hand, you think of it as in the popular press, it's thought as negative. The reality is it's just a difference, it's a resetting of the values. It's like in sports, the transition. And if you're quick on the transition, you can move well. I know when COVID hit, I got on Grant Cardone's live streams, and really he jumped all over the transitional market in COVID, and he made an absolute fortune. And I did real well in my own smaller way, but we're definitely headed into another transition period right now. And for those of you who are struggling, all it takes is you working twice as hard and 10 times more effectively. That's all you have to do. Figure out how to do that. It's doable. You can do it. This is the opportunity of your lifetime. And I've been telling people for a long time, but it's true. This is the best opportunity ever in my lifetime to create wealth. It's happening right now because the values, I was trying to buy stuff the last, I run a business in my part-time, I buy investment property. I couldn't find stuff to buy because it was so competitive. Now all of a sudden there's more deals available. So this is the opportunity of a lifetime for those of us who are waiting for it. What do you say? I'm sure there are people out here who are scared, nervous. What do you tell them? They want to invest, but they've worked hard to create their money, and they have money on they're in stocks that are down, or they have money in the bank, and they've been, inflation's pulling them. What do you tell them about the opportunity that's sitting in front of us right now?
Yeah, so it's not better or worse, it's different, right? Like that's all it is. It's just different, like you picture seasons, like different seasons come and go, you do different things, right? Like you don't wear shorts in the winter, you don't wear parkas in the summer, right? Like, especially since I live in Chicago, like we have extremes, right? So like we've had days already so far where it's like over 100 degrees. And then in the winter, you can get as cold as like -20 or -30, so we face a lot of extremes. So I'll answer your question, and I'll answer another question that I see in the chat box by Sue, I think. How do you prepare for a recession? So for me, one of the things I'm really paying attention to is how my financing is structured. So if you look at a lot of different recessions that occurred in the past, a lot of investors lost their property because of how they structured their financing. A lot of investors who had their properties paid off, no worries, right? Like there was absolutely zero where like they didn't lose anything in 2008, 2009. But if you look at the investors who lost a lot of things, it's how they structured the financing. So for me, one of the things I really worry about is a lot of these big real estate funds and syndications that are purchasing large assets, especially multifamily, are very lenient and leaning very heavily on the idea of buying distressed, value add, and then cash out refi. Like a lot of syndications are doing that right now. Like that's kind of like the new kid on the block. And I worry about that because you're leaning every step of the way on an economy that I believe is about to change. So for example, let's take a look at the first one, right? So they're leaning on the idea that rents are going to continue to go up, right? So they're buying properties where, hey, there's a spread, like market rent is significantly higher than the existing rent of our subject asset. And I believe personally that rents have shot up well beyond wages and income in this country. Like if you look at it, it's like they've grown 3 times faster. If you look at the acceleration of rental growth as a country, as a whole, right? At the end of the day, like real estate is local. If you find a market that's well sustaining, where wages and income can sustain your level of rent, go right ahead, go nuts, go crazy, right? But speaking federally from a nationwide perspective, rents have accelerated 3 times the amount that wages and incomes have gone up. Even your typical mortgage payment. So like even where I live, which is Warrenville, Illinois, your 3-bedroom, 2-bath market rent's gone up from $1,800 to $2,600 in a span of 18 months, which is absolutely bananas. Like it's almost a 50% increase in rent. So we ask ourselves the question, is that number sustainable? And there's markets where that's worse, markets where that's better. And the answer is it's not. Like it's not. It's just like 2008. People were getting mortgages despite income and wages not increasing and credit scores not increasing. That was the big thing. The economy was built on the back of mortgages that were faulty, that were not as good as rating agencies said they were. And the same thing that's happening now. Investors are buying assets based on rent projections that are not sustainable. You're not gonna like there's places where people are buying 300, 400, 500 unit apartment complexes that will not get the rental increases that they think they're going to get, right? And last but not least is they're structuring financing in a way where their debt service coverage ratio, which is the number that banks will most importantly look at, is not going to be as good as what they think it is. So I see a lot of real estate funds and syndications and real estate buyers that are utilizing interest-only loans, that are utilizing mezzanine financing, that are utilizing transitionary financing period to enjoy a significantly larger cash flow in exchange for not seasoning the note, not paying off any equity, not paying off any principal on an annualized basis. And that worries me significantly, because what happens when that 2, 3, 4, 5-year period runs dry and all of a sudden they have to either refinance or their adjustable goes up? You're looking at a period where I wouldn't be surprised if in 12 months, 18 months, commercial interest rates shoot up to 7%, 8%. So even back in 2017, I mean, what was the 30-year conventional rate? Like 4.5, 4.25, around there, right? Around that ballpark, right? If you look at the traditional 30-year residential rate, commercial rates were at 5.5. That was the going commercial rate for a lot of areas around the country. And to give you an idea, right now, I checked last night, for the week, it was at 6.325%. That was the 30-year conventional. Currently, the commercial rate is 5 to 5.5%. I spoke to 6 banks the last 5 days. Every single one of them has said, yeah, the going commercial rate right now that we offer is 5% to 5.5%. That's the range. It's about to shoot up. We're about to skyrocket it right now. So whatever program you get with us, do it now, because we're about to launch that thing into closer to the 6-7% range. So you think about all these buyers who bought 200, 300, 400 unit apartment complexes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago for 4%, 4.25%. And then their debt service skyrockets to 7%. What's that going to do to their cash flow? But more importantly, what is that going to do to their debt service coverage ratio with a market that the rental increases is not sustainable by the wages and income nationally speaking? So you're talking about these guys being hit from both sides. So, I mean, I don't know. Is that going to happen? Who knows? Maybe the Fed will print another $7.4 trillion, right? Like the guy they might, right? Like the guy who's currently in the White House, I believe him. He probably will do it. Like he's very invested in making himself look good, right? Economically speaking, he reminds me of, like, historically speaking, he reminds me a lot of Jimmy Carter in terms of his fiscal policies. But again, that's kind of what we're faced with right now. And the Fed has shown recently that they're willing to increase rates, that they might not bail out investors this time around.
Yeah, I think what you say highlights, there's a reason why traditional methods of finance and real estate investment work over the long haul. And I've been around long enough to see all kinds of different gimmicks and strategies come and go because they don't stand the test of time. And I see the same thing you do, these mezzanine, these special financing and interest only just to qualify for a loan. That's great today, but you're right. If rates shoot up 1-2% more, what's that whole thing look like? And if rates go up 1-2% more, there'll be more layoffs, which means less people renting. When those two things go together, they're not two different items. If interest rates go up, companies will lay people off, and that's part of the problem, and it makes it more difficult. Okay.
Yeah.
Always try to get a fixed rate. I think in real estate, cash flow, man. If you have cash flow, it's always worth something. The principal portion goes up every month, and yes, the interest portion goes down, but there's something to be said about being locked in. You have the choice. It's certainly for most, certainly in residential real estate, it makes a lot of sense to stay in a fixed rate mortgage.
So one of the things that my partnerships we're doing, right, because we're still going after large apartments. We're also going after self-storage, but one of the things that we're really aggressive on right now is going after individuals for seller financing.
Nice.
I really want to stay away from institutional financing at this time. I really do. Banks make me really nervous currently, regardless of what VP of commercial lenders may say. They just make me really nervous. And if I am going to work with a bank, I'm going to work with a bank that is going to offer me at least 1/3 fixed rate of the whole loan. Like that to me is very important. That way, if I have to refinance or if I have to do anything, I've seasoned my note long enough, right? To where the balance on my loan is not as big. And even if the interest rates does increase, my debt service will stay the same because the rate might be higher, but the balance is lower too. So, but yeah, I'm going after seller financing, fixed rate, right?
I think everybody should be looking at seller financing, learning how to do it as a listing agent. I'm more and more looking for sellers who opportunistically make sense for them to sell the property, carry back, get some cash flow, help you get your property sold, buyers get a good deal. I mean, it definitely is the season of our market to learn and study on seller carrybacks. Subject to use is another one. So your meetup is that more for people who want to get into the business of it? How about investors, people who want to look at the projects that you have to invest in, both accredited and non-accredited? Do you have options for both or either? And if so, where would they plug into your system?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a platform for passive investors currently, because that's one of the frustrations that a lot of passive investors that are in my network have expressed to me. They're just like, I just feel like I don't have a place where I can go to look at opportunities, to and vet GPs and vet sponsors and actually see if they know what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, for now, they're more than welcome to just message me directly. I'd be more than happy to walk people through what we've got going on, see if it's a good fit.
Great.
I'm one of those people that I don't work with just everyone. We do have requirements, we do have qualifications that we do look for. But for me, my natural way of showing up is that, I try to help everybody, and even if they don't work, if they can't work with me, I have a couple buddies who really know what they're doing and they understand and grasp everything that we're talking about right now. And I'd be more than happy to refer people to the right product, the right GPs,
Yes.
just the right, because not everybody should work with me either, right? Like I offer a very specific product that serve a group of people. And I have friends who offer a different set of products that serve different people.
Yeah, you do what you do, and people who like that, great, and people don't like that.
Right.
Out of luck working with you. It's just kind of how life works. Same with I do another call as well, and it's like some people like something different. Okay, well, this is what I'd like to do. So it's the way it works, I guess. And unless you want to pay for it, then I'll do whatever you ask me to do if you pay enough money for it, I guess. Okay, last call for questions. I think we're actually kind of wrapping up on time here. I don't see any hands up. I think we cleared all the questions. Was there one last one there in the chat? Is your book on Audible? Is your book on Audible by chance, Daniel?
It is. Yeah. So I think that option is there when you go on the site and you purchase the book. I think an ebook comes with it, or I don't know, maybe if you pay for it, but it is on Audible. I will tell you right now, I do remember recording the audio for it. So it better be on Audible because I spent the whole week doing it. It was a lot of work, man. It's a lot of water and throat coat tea and all that stuff. Also, if people want to reach out to me directly, I mean, there's 25 people, so it's an intimate group. I love intimate groups. So I'll give away my real email address. So certain podcasts that have like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of listeners, I'm a little bit more hesitant to give that away. But my email is just daniel@thekwakbrothers.com. That's my primary one. That's the one I check most often. So if you want to see what opportunities we have, even if you want to just say hi, or if you have a question, then feel free to just shoot me an email.
And when I get this podcast up to 10,000, I'll take your email out of there. We'll edit
Perfect. I love it, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, look, Daniel, it sounds like we got the right the Kwak brothers. Sounds like we got the right one for our phone call today. I really appreciate.
I hope so. Yeah.
I think one was good enough. I think two would have been too many. So, as good looking as your brother is, I think it all worked out real good. Thank you so much for being on today. Thank you for sharing with people and sharing what you do. And I know I appreciate it. I listen to you and follow you and want to continue working with you. So thank you on behalf of everybody on the call today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. It was an honor to be here.
And then again, we do this every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's live stream on YouTube and Facebook. Again, we've rebranded this now, the LAProbate.com podcast. Stay tuned for some additional details. Got some new graphics going on, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. I'm Bill Gross. You can reach me direct phone number 310-210-0008, 310-210-0008. Hey, Javier, how you doing? Nice to see you, man. Guys, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.